the mystical way, rising up above the mammalian domain, the mystical channel, which is tribal, in the evolutionary direction, the drive to cross that bridge and leap out of the tribe and into the higher self. We're moving through this track into the bridge and into the two individual channels, the initiation, design of needing to be first, and the awakening, a design of higher principles. Individuality is about empowerment, and it's an off-on thing. So through the individual process, we have initiation and awakening. And only through the individual process do we have initiation and awakening. Awakening happens in a pulse. It's off and on. The mammalian gate, where it starts, then at the end, we have the 20, where it ends, the unique awareness or awakened awareness in the now. This is what the goal is for anybody who wants to wake up the mystical way. In the recordings, he talks about it's not about enlightenment, it's just awakening, which is the expression of one's identity, self-loving behaviors expressed in the now, empowered in the now, and you are awake. So we who are human design experimentors, we are the exact opposite of religion because we established religion, because we don't tell people what to do. There is this unique perfection of individual consciousness, the unique value of an individuated awakening. So spirituality that doesn't have anything to do with sacrifice, unless you're talking about the not self, because the only not self sacrifice that you need to make is the vanity of believing that your mind tells you what to do and that it is true and that it is right and that it is real. That vanity of thinking that you're in charge, that is the one thing that needs to be quote unquote sacrificed. But it's the sacrifice of letting go of the not self, which those of us who have openness have some things to let go of that are particularly not healthy. And I tell you, it takes a long time to let go, because particularly of your mind running the show. If you are somebody like me who, since you were a kid, been really fascinated by esoterics and, awakening and mysticism and all this stuff. If you've been fascinated by so much of that and just conditioning yourself by taking it all in like a sponge and then trying to figure it out, what can happen is there's this incredible storage of stuff that I remember when I was a kid, my mind was like, oh, if I put too much stuff in there, I won't be able to fit anything else in there. So there's a finite amount of stuff I can fit in here. I better make it good. I better make it stuff that's of value, says my mind, stuff that's really true, says my mind. But when it comes to our awareness of truth, it is the crystallization of the form principle that actually speaks to us, that shares with us our lived experience, and we can get in touch with that. It doesn't have to be verbal. It doesn't have to be mental. It's physical. You surrender your mind to allow the form principle to awaken. Bodies don't awaken, but to express its individuated truth. There we go. So the individual awakening is going to be unique and different to each of you. And no one else outside of you is going to know whether or not that is true. It's only you in your process that is going to feel the empowerment of being or not. Remember, off, on. It's not like it's always there. It's there and gone. But in loving the self, right there, awakening is the reward. The contemplation of the now, here now. Loving yourself now, that beauty of the 10th gate, to love oneself now at its deepest level, as in the unconditional, 25 can be that way, love of self, or not, can always show up as an or not. But in the aligned way, when you're resonating, vibrating on the principle of being you, now you know what is true, as in you live what is true. This is not part of knowing circuitry. It's part of centering and integration. So you be what is true for you. So in the loving of yourself, the polarity of being a sacrifice or sacrificer in the sacrificer game. So we can see these two being a part of, instead of tribal sacrifice up here, it's individual awakening. So tribes don't wake up. Cute, huh? Tribes don't wake up. Only individuals can wake up. You don't wake up in a group. Why? This is not a group channel. You can't wake up in a group. You become controlled, homogenized, conditioned by the group. So beings who have the greatest power on this planet, Ra says, the individuals with powerful individual aspects in the mystical way, are beings that have the deepest influence on others. This deep influence is because they demonstrate their unique awakeness in the now, relative to the not self, obviously. So we're going to talk about how individuals have a concretized, mystical, individual way, not just this kind of individual design, but all individual designs. I think that will help for some of you who maybe are like, wait, I don't have anything in there. Remember, everyone has everything. You all have your own way. So as we deconstruct continually, we're going to look at little isolated parts, and then over time, we're going to link things together, and you're going to see how you, in your own authority too, can be your own shaman, your own priest, your own priestess, or whatever non-binary label you want to ascribe to. The dilemma is that you still have, I'm giggling because I have no freaking idea. I don't keep track of the common, vernacular. So if you want to educate me down the road, happy to hear what you find about those kinds of things. Sometimes I ask my daughter and she giggles and laughs and is like, yeah, rolling her eyes, I'm sure, at me for not knowing what the common street language is for all of these things. The dilemma, Ra says, is that you still have the whole framework of this mystical way built into the structure. That 25th gate, shaman, priest, or priestess, is a power trip gate originally. Why? Because if you look at what the two Wa channels are up here in upper management, the 2145 was large and in charge, power trip, power hungry, power control. This is ownership, mine, me, ours, we, all that stuff. And the moment that that person, 41 or 2145, gets too high up on their horse and let them eat cake, somebody will come along and cut them down, off with their heads and put somebody else in place. And there's the balance of power. The persons who, the Pope behind the king with their big old crown like hat and their staff too, and whatever that was true for them. So there's a power trip of, you've got your power because of the grace of God, and I'm the mouthpiece for God back in the day, So this deeply complex gate, through this gate, Ross says, it's possible to liberate the tribe spiritually. And yet, it does not operate in the not self sense in that way. In essence, it turns the tribe back to its primitiveness over and over. Why would it do that? Why would it gatekeep? Because you're still going to work hard and pay my way. You're still going to slave. You're still going to be controllable and homogenized. The moment we go up here, no control. You don't have control over somebody else's awakened being. They love themselves. Oh, they are so much less controllable. Why? Because if they love themselves, they don't give a living crap about what you think of them. They love themselves for them. So no more love, honor, and obey you. I don't need to people please you. I can do what I can do, or whatever it is that I know is part of what is true. So here we have the way of them controlling as pushing them back into the 49 and sacrifice, because that was the religion. Push them back, tell them to sacrifice, build this church, build this temple, build these schools in order that we can continue to indoctrinate you, Sunday school, indoctrination, in order to keep you going as far as sacrificing. So we're still dealing with that priest standing in doorways, preaching whatever, love, honor, and obey, love thy neighbor as thyself, and so forth. It's not easy to jump across this bridge, or to walk across, or to skip across, or to run across. It literally takes the mutation to get you out of walking over that bridge, And what if somebody up there is telling you what to do that you believe is true because you subject yourself to they know better than you? Oh, I got to go back here. Oh, they told me that's not right. Way to go. Oh, I got to go back here. So they're gatekeeping, priestess. And this is one of the reasons why you see out there people going, no, I don't need to go to a temple. I can go to nature. Nature is there. God's there. God's everywhere. You know, you don't need the middleman. There's that shaman, priest, or priestess holding out their donation bucks. Here you go, you know, feed me, kind of a thing. So mutation gives us the way to break through. Yeah, breaking through. Remember, mutation is what leads us out of the tribe and into the magic of what it is to be an individual. If you're really interested in magic, left eye, spirit magic gate, this is taste 48. There is the dark magic, not black as in evil, but as in form magic. There's audio on Jovian that talks about magic and such too, if you're looking for the magic and mystery and wonderment of magic moving through you. We're all magic too. You don't have to perform magic in the way that oftentimes people are showing us on TV. Words themselves are spells. And this is one of the things that shamans or priests or priestesses would use in order to either get you to move into the light or stay there in the darkness where you can sacrifice and you can work hard and you can slave away. You know, there's everything under the sun when it comes to the mystical way path. All kinds of tricksters and people taking advantage of everyone's need or longing for finding the higher self and awakening. The 49's primitive spiritual reality is that we are going to sacrifice you who don't follow our traditions. Those infidels must pay a price, right? So that there's killing and butchering and enslaving people and all of that stuff. So many people caught in the 49's gate of primitiveness still, who play, maybe they have that and they have the high priest or shaman, and they tell other people, oh, you can have it too, so long as you, and then you're going to serve that shaman or priest, serve the master, serve the guru, you know, depending on what culture you're in. And then the guru will bless you. And then the gatekeep, the shaman, the priest, priestess will bless you. And that's how you find God, by serving and pleasing the master. That's all not this here now as we shift into the true nine-centered awakening. Yes, in history, that was true as far as what they do. But here now, this is not the path that you have to ascribe to. But the ritual, that ritualistic, you know, sacrificial, whether it be plants or animals or your free time. This going on and on and on, the movie to look at. The reason why we're going deep into this depth is because what you can do is start to recognize the concepts, the principles that people are bound by, because this is tribe. They are shackled by these false and negative belief systems that they don't have the capability to find their own higher self without some gatekeep. You know, go to this human design reader and read my chart. Ooh, now that's all across the board. Astrology, tarot, you know, Akashic records. Everybody has access to access all of those internal processes. You don't have to have dependencies. This whole world was built on dependencies. So how can we let go of the fear being coerced? We're going to threaten you by removing your capability of being a part of our society or our religion or our government or our whatever. The threats of violence. When you look at a defined ego, you're looking at, in the not self particularly, you're looking at somebody who threatens in order to get what they want or whatever they need, what they think they need. So if you don't sacrifice, you're out. If you don't obey, you're out. So these human beings are controlled and manipulated by these powers that be, and they not God anointed. They just happen to be in the hierarchy or older or whatever it is that they have that the other one doesn't, and the one that doesn't wants. It's just this fear and coercion game that if we don't obey the traditions, if we break any of the laws, we're out. Sorry about the seriousness. Okay, the mystical way. When we're looking at this, not everything that we're looking at is positive. In other words, if you haven't already noticed in the tones of the voice, the development of our consciousness in this time now, we are in Kali Yuga as far as there is a lot of challenge and upset to the way that human beings are behaving. It just is. So this so-called mystical process now has in fact brought a lot of harm. I love that animation that Katja made where she was like knocking people back, they try to go up and up, push back, because this is how human beings have been forced into homogenization from the neutrino ocean, and also humiliated by the sacrificing principle that our primitive spiritual ancestors have concretized into ritual and routine over millennia, into endless rituals. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have time to go out there and explore what is or is not true. But if you know anything about child slavery or sacrificing children in order to tap into their, I don't know if it's their pineal gland or whatever the heck it is, that kind of stuff. I mean, the demonicness of those kinds of rituals where they're taking on somebody else's essence and life force in order to have their youth available. I mean, there's all kinds of horrible things that can have and still to this day happen. So when you encounter anything that smacks of mental dis-ease or ill health, make sure that if anybody's in danger, they're in a cult, they're literally in a cult, or they're being threatened, is particularly to their boundaries of sexuality or their life, that would be somebody I would either refer, or if they're, in that space of feeling unsafe to where they're so depressed, they're wanting to kill themselves even. That's where it's our responsibility to call somebody or to help them get help. Okay, if it's really that dramatic and tragic, there are those stories. Okay, the real mystical way, tribal, individual, the real mystical way is not something anymore that is connected to the tribal way of being because of the support mechanisms or the demands of tribal continuity. It's breaking off, as you can see, we've talked about over this past hour. It's not connected to the traditions that are rooted in the 37th gate that lock you into the fear of being ostracized from the community if you don't go along with the rituals. Look at the proof evident in how many people are divorcing and marrying again and again. It's not this, oh, I have to stay and, we promise till death do us part thing. It's not happening anymore. So it's already separated as far as its control mechanism on us. This bridge, after the bridge, everything becomes about I, individual. This is the theme that leads us to mutation. We know all individuality is mutative, and magic, the magic of being individual in the circuitry. So there's nothing more common in the circuitry than individuality. It's really hard. If you ever come across this, I would love to know a chart that has not one gate activation in individuality, because those three individual kinds of subcategorization of individuality, we either have integration, which is one thing, we have centering, which is a subcircuit, another thing, and then we have the knowing circuit and that layering over top of those channels. So when you have gate activations, now we're talking away from mystical way. I want you to look down at your body graph and look down at all those individual either channels. It fixes you into a very specific way to experience the mutation and the awakening and the empowerment of one's mystical pressure or awareness or whatever the case may be. If you have a channel, it locks you into a specificity. If you have a gate, then there's going to be a different way that you're conditioned to experience what is true. Truth is individual. So individuality, all of it carries a very specific chemistry of mutation. And this touches all centers in the entire body graph circuitry. It's the core, the backbone, like quite literally so, the backbone of what it is to be human. We are mutative creatures. So if we look at the 63, the channel of mutation, a design of energy which operates, fluctuates, and initiates and operates in a pulse. This is the heart and soul of the creative process. And this individual nature of being, off on fluctuation pulse, we know that this is what is creating the format of the entire circuitry. The creative process is about sensitivity to non-homogenized frequencies. So left ear, hearing what people really want over time. Right ear, hearing truth or not being spoken. So non-homogenized frequencies means it's not out there collective like everybody else. It's unique, it's different. So the built-in sensitivity that we have who are individual, that is not part of the common plane of existence. What's outside the box? What's outside the norm? This is why all individuals feel like they're outsiders, because they are. They're mutative. They're different. What makes it difficult to be an individual is that we do not conform to the norms or the standards that have been established, because once we mutate, game on, that 28 right there. Mutation inside of somebody makes a distinct difference. One of the reasons why, as you decondition and align, your voice changes, because your voice carries the frequency. Okay, your voice of mutation, your expression of your frequency changing, individuating. When we look at the individual circuitry, remember, any kind of activation that you have shows the chemistry that is mutative, not just the channel. Channel locks you in, definition, creates the life force. Remember, because it's an off-on principle, it doesn't mean that you're mutating all the time. It means that there are two concepts here. When we plane, so to plane means to fly without flapping, to glide when we're using it as a verb. Planing, that's what individuality is about. The individual emotional wave, it planes, it floats, so to speak, according to Ra, through a very narrow band with the potential to be able to peak either upwards in giddiness or downwards into depression. So chemistry brings a kind of evening out here with the individual until we have the spike, right? The spike, the pulse of energy. It brings a level of uncertainty. All individuality can be uncertain, wavering, off and on, there and gone, here and now or not. So without mutation, we would have no knowing, as in Knowing, knowing. All of individuality here in this body graph is related to knowing. No matter where you find it, all individuality is related to knowing, according to Ra. So that knowing is there potentially all over the entire body graph, every single center. It's what's new. It's that potential to mutate, not that it's necessarily going to. Timing is everything for individuals, right? All time is now, here and now. So individual circuitry, We have that uncertainty principle because of the planing. We don't know when the spike up or down is going to happen. And when there's nothing new, nothing at all, nothing that is true, sad, depressed, when the frequency shifts into or gets stagnant and stuck, now we have a problem, as in, yeah, nothing happening, nothing happening, nothing happening, nothing happening. And it feels very uncomfortable because all of that pressure is building and building and building and building. And when is it going to mutate? It's like wanting to give birth and you're just so sick and tired of being pregnant already. You just want to pop and you don't know when it's going to happen. So it's going to peak either one way or another, up or down principle. The moodiness is in the uncertainty. The frequency shift happens in the pulse, either up or down. The uncertainty principle, because of the chemistry, because of the moods, all individuality being very moody, because this is the nature of what it is to plane and spike up or down. The moodiness is there in the plane, no matter what. The uncertainty is there in the planing, the flat line, no matter what. So in these moments of peaking, where we either know or not, they can shift up, they can shift down, doesn't have to be equidistant. See that? It's not commonly exactly perfect. And he says that this is a fascinating thing about individual moodiness. The best way to describe the chemistry is to describe it through melancholy. And the sweet sadness is one of the things that I have experienced too, because it doesn't always have to be depressive or a problem if you channel that energy into something that you enjoy. I remember as a kid listening to rainstorms and cello for the first time and going, oh my God, and being able to cry because, you know, this emotional system kind of tucked down inside doesn't really cry constantly or all the time. So being able to express or emote that energy, poetry, music, dance, art, song, all of these things that get us in touch with our inner knowing or not. Sadness is a call to the creative process. So that's why we always recognize and invite people into or ask them, what do you do when you're sad? What's your favorite thing to do when you're melancholy? And if they don't have tools, look at the design, see what they can experiment with, encourage them to go pick up the guitar and, you know, just play. And you emote through an instrument, and that is a very different day that you're having if you just sit there stagnant and stuck and alone. So individuality recognizes, all of us who are individual, that the creative process can be a calling to express the inner muse. Then if we don't achieve that or experience that, even just turning on the music is like, if you have no energy at all, music can help. If you don't go to that creative process, it's a fall into the embrace of what it is to be depressed, deep rest, the depression. Melancholy as a depression becomes part of the plane itself, and that can last a lifetime. And that's where we have really sad people, depressed people on our hands. Eeyore, to be kind of cute about it. You remember Eeyore, the little donkey in Winnie the Pooh? It's a cartoon. Okay, so creativity is receptivity. This is one of the great ironies. The yin, remember, gate 2, all yin lines, the form principle. When we exit the body, we exit through the 60. Creativity is receptivity to the form principle. Ross says, it has nothing to do with creativity in the way that it's used in the common domain. This is a creative person because they are acting out of creativity. In fact, it's an incredible receptivity, this receptivity to the form principle. Quote, through the aspect within the matrix that we call individuality is the possibility to filter the neutrino stream so that it comes out either as a creative act or as a mystical experience. So if you don't have any defined individuality, you are not going to have a mystical event on your own, of your own, on your own, and of your own. There is no way, it just can't happen. Now, you can be conditioned to it, but it's not the innate beingness of this form principle with its personality awareness being what it was born to be. So you can be conditioned to think you're getting some kind of event, and that would put you all the way back into 1949 mode, oh, it's the gods speaking through me or whatever. When you're just taking in conditioning that actually has nothing to do with you individually. So there are 4 different ways this is going to show up. Dormant gates are potentials for a mystical event through the connection with the other. In generators and projectors, it's the connection with the other that is going to bring the mystical event wherever you have hanging individual gate activations. Okay? Generators and projectors, it's about the other being. That is because of the auric frequency field, the way that it's built. So we see generative. We know if they have individual activations hanging and no individual channels, that it is the other that's going to create the conditioning for the individual knowing of this mystical event to happen. With the projector, of course, and this is split apart so you don't misidentify what this is manifested. We have the energy channels down here. We have the non-energy channels up here in black. So this is a projector design. I'm showing you this design to remind you everything for the projector is the right other. So if there's an activation that is individual, that's hanging out, this is where we're going to have a deep relationship to the other in order to find that mystical event, that knowing. That is a communal, not communal, a communion, there we go, communion with the right other in order for that mystical event to be conditioned to, not somebody's innate design, form, or awareness principle. And then if we're going to look at reflectors and manifestors, they are a different story because they have a different energetic frequency. Those dormant gates are potentials for the mystical event through certain moments of the program conditioning, not the person. It's the moment of the program conditioning. So reflectors have this capability of their hanging activations being hooked up by not only all the planets, but particularly their lunar activations, getting hooked up, the moon moving through all of those gates like clockwork. Every month they get that particular aspect of knowing. That's their mystical event. So please understand again, reflectors have no inner process of authority. They have a lunar process of authority. So any of their individual activations that are just hanging out there through that lunar imprint can give them their mystical event. That is part of the program conditioning, but it is truth for them. Truth, their individual truth. Manifestors, we're looking at something different. So here's the reflector again. They are masters of compromise, here to taste and sample conditioning, but not get stagnated or stuck with the personal conditioning from the person. They are designed to be barometers of a larger group and connected up to the global frequency shifts and neutrino ocean that we're all being bombarded by. This is what is going to bring them their mystical event. Manifestors, because they have a closed and repelling aura, the density of their aura does not bring the same kind of connective field that generators and projectors have with each other or with themselves, their own kind. Manifestors, your dormant gates, wherever you have an activation in individual circuitry, this is where the potential through a transit brings the mystical event for you at certain moments of program conditioning. So it's focused more on the transit than the person, absolutely. If you have defined individuality, you have the fixed potential for the mystical process, your own nature, your own individual mutation brings forth the mystical process of knowing or not, the awareness principle, or the power in response, or whatever the case may be, okay? activations now in the mystical way. When you look at, let's say we're looking at a holy figure or gurus. If you get Ra's course, you'll listen to him analyze several holy people, analyze his chart and share with you why and wherefore. But there's two things to look at when we're looking at someone that you can also look at in your own design is what is the activations or the activations that they have in the mystical way, because that will describe their balance, their way. Their individual circuitry activations is another thing that you can look at to see where is their individuality in the design, their own mystical way to empower their individual truth, their own individual empowerment of what is true for them. And then the last thing that you can look at is any mystically oriented gates and lines. So we know the gate 54, line 4, enlightenment and darkenment. So you would look finally at those things that are, there are many that are mystical or spiritually oriented, whatever progression they have inside of their nature of design. As an example, go look at all sixes. Yeah. 6 Buddha, Bodhisattva, sixes having that detached, unattached, the observational life process learning to get to that place of role modeling and being authentic, as an example.